you're tuning into this week's edition of our Voluntary Station News Weekly Show. Got a lot of good stuff for you this week, and so without further ado, we'll get into our first piece of news. In case you needed any more reason to try and curb your consumption habits, a new report has been released this week by the World Wildlife Federation that warns that current global consumption levels could result in a worldwide ecosystem collapse by the year 2050. As a planet, we're running a serious ecological debt, producing grave loss in biodiversity, the result of resources being consumed faster than the Earth can replace them. The World Wildlife Federation's report explains that if we keep consuming at the rate that we have been in the last 25 years, we're going to need 2 planets to meet all of our consumption needs in the near future. The nations that have the largest ecological footprints that they leave on the world, that is, the nations whose consumption impacts the environment most negatively, are none other than the United Arab Emirates, Finland, and, surprise, surprise, our dear United States of America. Another interesting fact about our consumption is that this Halloween, Americans will spend $4.95 billion, yes, you heard me, that's right, $billion in Halloween-related goods, costumes, candies, and other things we use to celebrate the scary holiday. Just a thought here, but why not try to get creative this year and fashion a costume out of, recycled items, things you find around the house, or perhaps something you pick up at a local thrift store. Your costume will be more unique, and you'll be helping out the planet by consuming less. Just an idea. Now on to our next bit of news. In response to widespread problems incurred by voters in the 2000 and 2004 presidential elections, which went largely overlooked by the media once the results of those elections had been accepted, concerned citizens this year are taking to the ballot boxes, armed with video cameras, to record their experiences of voting in the midterm elections this November 7th. The organization End the Blackout is looking to recruit voters to bring cameras with them as they go to vote to document the difficulties that they experience. Head to their website to check out a video that exposes the issue of voter complications in the last 2 elections. www.videothevote.org. You can volunteer to be a citizen journalist and bring a camera with you as you go to vote in these midterm elections to document any problems as they occur, to make sure the full story of the elections is told this November. October is Fair Trade Month, and in honor of that, we'd like to put the spotlight on the film Black Gold, a documentary that takes a look into the multi-billion-dollar coffee industry and the poor farmers who cultivate little beans that go into the coffee that we chug so regularly every day. The movie follows the head of a coffee farmers union from Ethiopia as he sets out on a quest to seek better profit margins for the destitute coffee growers of his country. Black Gold takes us through the various corners of the coffee industry, from the growers in Ethiopia to the traders in New York who set the prices, to the baristas at Starbucks around the nation who tried to meet up with the demand. All the while presenting us with a narrative about the larger story of poor countries who struggle to try and benefit from global trade. Black Gold opened in theaters in New York and Seattle earlier this October and is now currently playing in theaters throughout the country. Make sure you check out that movie, and also, in further support of Fair Trade Month, don't miss out on the chance to help create a world where coffee growers receive their fair share of the profits by logging into the Oxfam website, www.oxfamamerica.org, to sign a petition telling Starbucks to give Ethiopian farmers their fair share of the profits. And last, but certainly not least, we're going to bring you an interview with a very special interrupter this week that is none other than the oh-so-talented, progressive, prolific hip-hop star Talib Kweli. We got to sit down with Talib for a few minutes backstage at one of his recent concerts and ask him a few questions about what kind of consumer he is and what kind of change Talib Kweli would like to see in the world. Let's take a look at that right now.
Can you introduce yourself?
Talib Kweli is my name.
Talib, what do you think about when you buy a product?
I think about if it's practical for my lifestyle and if I'm going to be able to use it enough to justify me spending money on it.
What kind of change do you want to see in your world?
In my world in general, I want to see people more connected to their past and more connected to the sacrifices that their ancestors made for them to be in the positions that they're in.
How do you feel like you interrupt reality or construct a new reality other than the one that's presented to us?
Well, the one that's I don't, whatever's presented to you is not reality. Reality is whatever you're dealing with. If something is presented to you as a perception or a snapshot of something, I just try to deal with the reality of my surroundings.
You mind saying you consider yourself an interrupter?
Not really. What do you mean?
We call ourselves interrupters at interrupcion because we feel like interrupt reality when we present news. So at the end of the interviews, I usually ask people to say, I consider myself an interrupter. But if you don't, then you don't.
Okay, sure. Yeah, I'm an interrupter. Sure.
Okay, cool. Thanks.
It's the perfect timing with the party morning. Everybody in the crowd wilding. Come on. I put a lot into it. This is my product and I gotta move it up the industry. And I'm just getting done with just not. It's a breakup, it's out there, it's all motherfucking scary. Just tell me what one can be if you and I don't care. Everybody gonna go into the air, come on. I'ma sing it out, say. Yeah, you know. Come on. You pronounce my name, I'm voluntary.
And looks like that brings us to the end of this week's edition of our Voluntary Station News Weekly Show. And remember, guys, before I peace out, like Talib Kweli says, life is a beautiful struggle. Gotta search through the rubble to find our suitable hustle. Have a good weekend, guys, and see you next week.